Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the AI. Today we are having a great podcast. We're going to be interviewing the ChatGPT right next to me. I do this podcast once a week, and I do a once a week drop of interviewing and debating the AI. And I have experts on the podcast to really talk through what we've discussed with the AI and see what their opinions are on what we're talking through. So that's what this channel is all about. So if you think you would like this content, go ahead and like and subscribe this video and subscribe to the channel. Leave some comments and let me know what you think. Today, we are talking about universal basic income. I'm going to be debating that universal basic income is not a good viable option for the future. And I want ChatGPT to argue that it is and provide as much feedback and pushback and be aggressive with your responses.
All right, Jonathan, let's get right into it. You're arguing against universal basic income, UBI, but I believe UBI is a viable and necessary option for the future. Let's talk about why UBI is essential. First, with the rapid advancement of
Hey everyone, welcome to Inside the AI. Today we have an amazing podcast. We're going to be debating ChatGPT. Today's debate is going to be on universal basic income. Is it a good option? I'm going to take the side that universal basic income is a horrible option. And I want ChatGPT to take the other side. I want you to push back and give me a lot of pushback. Be aggressive with your responses and tell me why you think universal basic income is a great option. You think you can do that?
All right, Jonathan, I'm ready to dive in and defend universal basic income. Let's get into it. Universal basic income is a fantastic option because it directly addresses the issues of economic inequality and job displacement caused by automation. By providing everyone with a guaranteed income, we can ensure a basic standard of living for all, which can lead to a more stable and prosperous society. How do you justify leaving people to fend for themselves in a rapidly changing job market? And don't tell me that people just need to work harder or learn new skills. Not everyone has the same opportunities or resources. Universal basic income levels the playing field, giving everyone the freedom to pursue education, start businesses, or take care of their families without the constant stress of financial instability. How can you argue against a system that promotes such widespread well-being?
Well, I want to bring up the first argument that I have. And I think the first argument that I have that's going to really give you a lot of pushback is disincentivizing work. I don't know why I couldn't say that word. So I think universal basic income is going to disincentivize work. And, you know, the University of Chicago has done a study and they actually proved this. And so, you know, having a $1,000 a month, this is what the University of Chicago has proven. Having a universal basic income of $1,000 a month will reduce your efficiency of your workforce by 13%. So I think this is one of the strongest arguments for why universal basic income is not going to be an effective strategy moving forward. What are your thoughts? And give me some statistics to back it up.
Jonathan, that argument about disincentivizing work is a classic one, but it's also quite flawed. The reality is that most people actually want to work and find meaning in their jobs. Universal basic income doesn't remove the desire to be productive. It simply provides a safety net. Let's look at the data from other experiments. For example, Finland conducted a 2-year universal basic income trial and found that recipients were not only more satisfied with their lives, but also felt more secure.
Think she got me there.
It didn't negatively impact their employment rates. In fact, some participants were more likely to start new businesses or take up part-time jobs. And about your point on workforce efficiency, other studies have shown different outcomes. For instance, the Manitoba Basic Income Experiment in Canada demonstrated that there was no significant drop in work hours among primary earners. People use the extra income to invest in their education, health, and overall well-being, which can lead to long-term benefits for society. Furthermore, in today's rapidly evolving job market, many jobs are becoming automated. A universal basic income can act as a buffer, allowing people to transition into new roles without the immediate financial pressure. How can we justify not providing this security in a world where job displacement due to technology is only increasing? Your stats from the University of Chicago might reflect short-term adjustments, but in the long run, universal basic income can lead to a more adaptable and innovative workforce. How do you respond to these broader, more comprehensive findings?
She got me. Well, I think you gave some good arguments. So I think that point goes to you. If we were giving a point system, I think you did a very good job of explaining your points. But I think what you're trying to say is that we need to address the root cause of poverty. I think one of the root causes can be culture. You're giving arguments for Finland, and their culture may support this type of behavior. I think in integrating into a culture that understands economics and finances would be impactful. So I could come your way if we did a system to educate people on how to maximize their universal basic income so that they're living within their means while also providing back to society. One of the other significant impacts is that having a universal basic income is going to put an over-reliance on the government. And so how do you argue that people are not going to be overly reliant on the government for everything they need? I got to look up some stats. She's killing me.
Jonathan, I hear you on the concern about over-reliance on the government, but let's dig into that. First, it's crucial to understand that universal basic income isn't about creating dependency. It's about providing a foundation. When people have their basic needs met, they can contribute more effectively to society. Take the example of Alaska, where residents receive an annual dividend from oil revenues. This hasn't created a culture of dependency. Instead, it has helped people invest in their communities and pursue opportunities they might otherwise have missed. Moreover, universal basic income can actually empower people to become less reliant on government support in other forms. Instead of multiple, often inefficient welfare programs, a streamlined basic income can reduce bureaucracy and give people the autonomy to decide how best to use their funds. This approach respects individual choice and reduces the stigma associated with traditional welfare. As for cultural differences, you're right that education plays a significant role. Implementing universal basic income alongside robust financial education programs can help ensure that people use their resources wisely. It's not about handing out money without support. It's about creating a system where people are better equipped to manage their finances and contribute back to society. Ultimately, universal basic income can foster a more resilient and self-sufficient populace, not one that's overly reliant on government. How do you justify denying people this foundational support, especially in a world where job security is increasingly uncertain?
I think you kind of got half a point. Maybe you took that one again. You gave some good arguments on your points. And one of the arguments I was going to push back on was the undermining of social safety nets. And I think what you're arguing is that because we have a universal basic income, we may not need welfare, we may not need unemployment or different social safety nets. And so that may be a good pushback to what I'm saying. So one of the arguments I do want to push back is inflation. So everything comes back to cost. So two main factors are going to impact this. Cost. What's the cost of providing a universal basic income to many of the Americans out there? And what would you recommend that universal basic income be for each citizen? Let's see what
Jonathan,
she got.
The concern about inflation and cost is definitely valid, but it's important to look at how universal basic income can be structured to mitigate these issues. First, regarding the cost, it's true that providing a universal basic income will require significant funding. However, this can be balanced through various means, such as reallocating existing welfare budgets, implementing progressive taxation, or even considering
She wants to
taxes on
tax you.
automation and data usage
Nope.
by large tech companies. Economists like Milton Friedman have even suggested that a guaranteed income could replace many inefficient welfare programs, potentially reducing overall administrative costs. As for the amount, many proposals suggest starting with a figure that meets basic needs without being excessive. For instance, a commonly discussed amount is around $1,000 per month. This isn't enough to fully replace an income, but provides a safety net that can reduce poverty and economic insecurity. The amount can be adjusted based on living costs in different regions to ensure fairness and effectiveness. Now, about inflation. The fear is that increasing everyone's purchasing power will drive prices up. However, studies and pilot programs have shown that moderate universal basic income doesn't necessarily lead to significant inflation. The key is gradual implementation and adjustments based on economic conditions. Additionally, increased demand from universal basic income can stimulate economic growth by boosting consumption and enabling entrepreneurship, which can counteract inflationary pressures. So, while the initial cost and inflation concerns are important, they can be managed with careful planning and phased implementation. Universal basic income offers a transformative potential that could lead to a more resilient and equitable society. How can we afford not to explore such an impactful solution in the face of growing economic challenges?
Well, I think you really lost that round. I think you mentioned progressive taxation. You want to tax us more than we're already getting taxed. So you're going to tax us to give us back the money in a universal basic income. That doesn't really make sense. Two, you're going to tax a corporation. That corporation is only going to pass that back down to the consumer. So that's not going to work. So also the one main thing that you want to talk about, $1,000 a month for each adult in the United States would be roughly $3 trillion annually. Even if you reallocated money and you raise taxes, this would be a significant burden on our society. So I think that's going to be an amazing challenge for universal basic income.
Jonathan, you make some strong points about the financial feasibility and potential tax implications. However, let's look at this from another angle. Progressive taxation doesn't necessarily mean an unbearable burden on individuals. It can be structured to ensure that those who can afford to contribute more do so without stifling the middle class. Regarding corporations passing costs on to consumers, it's true that this happens, but it doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. Policies can be designed to encourage businesses to absorb some of the costs, especially large tech companies that benefit immensely from automation. Moreover, investing in people through universal basic income can create a more dynamic economy, increasing consumer spending, which benefits businesses in the long run. As for the $3 trillion figure, it's substantial, but not insurmountable. Think about the broader economic impact. Reducing poverty, decreasing crime rates, and improving health outcomes can save money in other areas of the budget. Additionally, a more financially secure population can lead to increased entrepreneurship and innovation, which fuels economic growth. The challenge is significant, but dismissing universal basic income based on these hurdles alone overlooks its potential benefits. How do we balance immediate financial concerns with the long-term gains of a more equitable and resilient society?
I think you made some good points, but I think you still lost that round. I think an immediate solution, there is no immediate solution. I think we need to re-educate people on finances, on how to maximize their finances and get out of debt and maintain out of debt. I do want to say that when you provide a $1,000 stipend a month to employees, this may incentivize the employer to reduce the amount of hours they're going to give that employee. Why would they provide extra hours to someone when they're getting a stipend from the government? So this could have impacts that we don't see yet. They may go to many more part-time workers in their corporation with few full-time employees because they see an incentive to reduce their workload because you're already getting $1,000. Why should I supplement that even more? So that is one main problem that you're going to have.
Jonathan, your point about employers potentially reducing hours is valid and highlights an important concern. However, there's another side to consider. Universal basic income can actually empower workers to seek better employment conditions and not feel trapped in exploitative jobs because they need the money
She
to
got me
survive.
there.
This could lead to a more balanced labor market where employers are encouraged to offer better pay and conditions to attract and retain talent. Moreover, if implemented correctly, universal basic income can coexist with other labor policies aimed at protecting workers' rights. For instance, ensuring minimum wage laws and strengthening labor unions can prevent the scenario where employers reduce hours unfairly.
I think she won this round
Re-education on
again.
finances is crucial, and it should be a part of any comprehensive policy change. Financial literacy can help people make the most of universal basic income, but it's not a standalone solution to the systemic issues of poverty and job displacement. While your concerns are legitimate, the potential benefits of universal basic income in providing a safety net and enabling a more dynamic and adaptable workforce shouldn't be dismissed outright. How do you propose we tackle these systemic issues, if not through bold initiatives like universal basic income?
Well, I think it has to go to the root cause. I think we need to find the root cause of the issue, which in my mind is education. Not only education to say you go through your middle school, your elementary school, and high school, and you graduate and you have an education, but we need to implement programs to teach people the power of their money and the power of their finances and how to maximize and budget that. I don't think we do an effective job of doing that in schooling right now. I do want to mention, you mentioned taxing organizations, putting laws and regulations in place to ensure organizations meet certain expectations. The one pushback I want to give to that is the more regulations you put on a corporation, the more likely they are to move to a different place and relocate. So if you put regulations on in one state, they're going to move to a different state where they have a more incentivized package to operate. And if your country isn't effectively doing that, they're going to move to a different country that has their incentives in place. So if you continue to put regulations on corporations, they're going to leave your country, which reduces the jobs you have.
Jonathan, you raise important points about the need for financial education and the potential risks of overregulation driving businesses away. Enhancing financial literacy is indeed crucial. People need to understand how to manage money, budget effectively, and invest wisely. Integrating these skills into the education system would undoubtedly have long-term benefits. However, addressing systemic economic issues often requires a multifaceted approach. While education is vital, it's not the only solution. Universal basic income can complement these efforts by providing immediate financial stability, allowing people the breathing room to pursue further education and training. Regarding regulations, it's true that overly burdensome regulations can push businesses to relocate. However, smart, targeted policies can strike a balance. For instance, incentives for companies to invest in their workers and the local economy can encourage them to stay. Moreover, a universal basic income could create a more stable consumer base, which is attractive to businesses. Ultimately, the goal is to create an environment where people are financially secure, educated, and businesses can thrive. Universal basic income can be a part of this broader strategy, working alongside education reforms and thoughtful economic policies to build a resilient and equitable society. How do you propose we balance these elements to achieve sustainable growth and stability?
So you hit me with that one. I have no idea how we can balance it. I don't know how organizations would balance it. I think I would have to push back that to you for an answer on that. But how would we be able to provide an equal dispersion of the universal basic income? I don't think it would be very fair for someone who lives in Beverly Hills or the Orange County or one of these pretty well-off communities to get a universal basic income while someone in rural town Mississippi or Arkansas is getting a significantly reduced amount. So what's your argument to having a equally distributed income?
Jonathan, that's a great question, and it touches on an essential aspect of universal basic income: fairness and regional cost of living differences. One potential solution is to adjust the basic income based on regional cost indices. This way, the amount can be tailored to ensure it meets basic living standards relative to local expenses. For instance, someone living in a high-cost area like Beverly Hills might receive a higher amount compared to someone in a lower-cost area. This approach can help balance the disparities in living costs while maintaining the fundamental goal of providing financial security to everyone. Moreover, this adjustment
That's
mechanism can
horrible.
be periodically reviewed and updated to reflect changes in the cost of living, ensuring the universal basic income remains relevant and effective. By doing this, we can create a more equitable system
I
that
thought she would
addresses
say
the
the
diverse
reverse.
needs of people across different regions. Balancing this with the need for simplicity and minimizing bureaucracy is crucial. The goal is to keep the system straightforward enough to administer efficiently while being flexible enough to account for regional differences. This approach ensures fairness and helps maintain the universal appeal of the program. So while it's a complex challenge, with thoughtful design and periodic adjustments, we can implement a universal basic income that is fair and effective for everyone, regardless of where they live. How do you see this approach addressing your concerns about fairness and regional disparities?
See, I thought you would say the reverse. I thought you would say people in more rural or more poverty stricken locations should get more to equal what those people in a better community is getting. So I don't think either way is a fair way. This is one of the biggest challenges with the universal basic income. And will there be a cap on the universal basic income? So if somebody's making $1 million, do they still get a universal basic income every month, even though they're excessive on how much they're making? You know, it's great that they're making that money, and I salute them. But I don't think it'd be fair to give them more money because everyone else is getting the money. So I think that's another major challenge of it. Another challenge I think that you're going to have is the lack of this being implemented in a large scale environment. You know, you mentioned Finland, but, you know, mention a big city that this has happened in. And many of these social systems that we have in smaller rural areas, they work effectively. But when you go into a large community like New York, Chicago, they begin to break down because of how many people are in that system. So can you provide me one case of a large scale implementation of how this has been implemented?
Jonathan, your points are well taken, and they highlight the complexities of implementing a universal basic income on a large scale. Addressing the issue of who should receive universal basic income and how much they should get is indeed challenging. First, regarding wealthier individuals receiving universal basic income, one approach could be to provide the basic income universally, but then tax higher incomes more progressively to recapture some of the funds from those who don't need it.
She wants to tax you
This
again.
maintains the universality principle, which simplifies administration and avoids stigmatizing recipients while ensuring that the wealthiest contribute their fair share back to the system. On large-scale implementation, while it's true that Finland and smaller experiments provide valuable insights, larger-scale examples are more limited. However, there are some relevant instances. For example, the Alaska Permanent Fund, which provides an annual dividend to all residents, is a form of basic income that has been in place for decades and covers the entire state. While Alaska isn't as populous as New York or Chicago, it demonstrates the feasibility of a universal payout model in a diverse and expansive region. Furthermore, many proposals suggest starting with pilot programs in larger cities to gather data and refine the approach before scaling up.
She couldn't provide
This
it.
phased implementation allows for adjustments based on real-world challenges and ensures that the system can handle the demands of a larger population. Lastly, regarding rural versus urban disparities, a needs-based adjustment could be considered, though this adds complexity. Alternatively, ensuring that all regions have adequate support services and opportunities can help balance these disparities indirectly. So, while there are significant challenges, they are not insurmountable. With careful planning, phased implementation, and robust policy design, universal basic income can be adapted to work on a larger scale. How do you see phased pilot programs contributing to refining and scaling universal basic income effectively?
Let's take a step back. And I think you mentioned taxes again. So again, you're going to tax to provide us back that money. So I think that's a moot point. I think your argument is just a wheel. You're going in circles. You're taking money from one location, giving it back to another location, and just putting it in a cycle of going back and forth. So I don't think this is a very good example or solution to universal basic income. So I think in our entire discussion overall, I think you've persuaded me in some of your topics. I think it does have very good social dynamics. It does have support systems that are needed. I think some of the ideas are very strong with the universal basic income. However, some of the biggest challenges are its cost. Where's that money going to come from? Who's going to manage that money if our government can't manage the money right now that they have? And so how could we trust that they're going to manage this effectively? And then I think you really failed on providing a implementation on a large scale. There's never been a large scale implementation of this. And so when we move to large cities and urban environments, I think this is going to break down and fall apart. So I do want to thank everyone for listening. I think this is going to be the end of our podcast today. Go ahead and like and subscribe, please. Leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Are you supporting universal basic income? Are you not? You kind of heard my opinions in the end. I think it has some valid points, but the cost and the implementation is going to be very challenging. Overall, what do you think is going to be the overall solution? And do you think I won this debate or you won this debate?
Jonathan, I appreciate the lively debate and your thoughtful insights. You've raised some crucial points about the feasibility and practicality of universal basic income, particularly concerning cost and large-scale implementation. These are indeed significant hurdles that need thorough consideration and innovative solutions. As for who won the debate, it's really up to our listeners to decide. The
She
goal
can
was to
say it.
present both sides of the argument comprehensively, and I think we succeeded in highlighting the strengths and weaknesses of universal basic income. Ultimately, finding the right balance between innovative social policies and practical economic solutions is key. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to today's debate on universal basic income. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments. We want to hear your thoughts and ideas. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning.